ithamiti. So uh, when yeah, Narada Muni realized uh, his own self as being different from the body, then Dridha Bhakti, firm devotional service unto Lord Vishnu, which stops the disturbances created by the body and so on, because it removes the effects of tamoguna and rajoguna, which are the causes of those disturbances, came about. Anusavam means trikala, 3 times a day. He was uh, hearing these great soul sages chant the unadulterated glories of Lord Hari 3 times a day, all 3 times of the day. That means they are constantly glorifying the Supreme Lord. Transcendental loving service for the Supreme Lord is a natural inclination of every living being. The instinct is dormant in everyone, but due to the association of material nature, the modes of passion and ignorance have covered this instinct from time immemorial. If by the grace of the Lord and the great souled devotees of the Lord, a living being becomes fortunate enough to associate with the unadulterated devotees of the Lord, and thus gets to hear the unadulterated glories of the Lord, certainly the dormant instinct of devotion service is at once awakened, and the flow of devotion service takes place like the flow of a river. As the river flows on till she reaches the sea, similarly, pure devotion service flows by the association of pure devotees till it reaches the ultimate goal, namely transcendental love of God. Such a flow of devotion service cannot stop. On the contrary, it increases more and more without limitation. So this happens when we are fortunate enough to associate with the unadulterated devotees of the Lord and hear the unadulterated glories of the Lord. The flow of devotion service is so potent that any onlooker also becomes liberated from the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance. These two qualities of nature are thus removed, and the living being is liberated, being situated in this original position. So Shravanam also implies Kirtanam and Smaranam. It also implies getting rid of offenses and so on. We already noticed that Narada was not interested in sports and so on. He was self-disciplined. So all of this works together. So if we need to experience what Narada Muni experienced, we will have to become like Narada Muni, whatever he was, whatever he accepted, whatever he rejected. It may appear to be painful, but no pain, no gain. And Krishna will help through his devotees who are more advanced than us in Vairagya, Vidya, and Bhakti. 29. Tasyaivam menuraktasya prashritasya ataina saha shraddadhanasya balasya dantasya anucharasya cha. I was very much attached to those sages. I was gentle in behavior, and all my sins were eradicated in their service. In my heart, I had strong faith in them. I had subjugated the senses, and I was strictly following them with body and mind. This is something's wrong with this. Looks like. I open the other version. What did Vidvan say? This is not a complete sentence. Tasya kya? Text 29 and 30 constitute a sentence, a vakya. So anyway, I'll read this purport, go to the next verse, and then read the commentaries together. These are the necessary qualifications of a pure prospective candidate who can expect to be elevated to the position of a pure, unadulterated devotee. So let's look at these. Each of this is important. Tasya evam me anuraktasya. So I was attached to them. Prashritasya, obediently. I was obediently attached to them. Hata ena saha. And then I became freed from sins. Shraddha I was faithful. Balasya. I was a young boy. Dantasya. I had subjugated my senses. Anucharasya. Cha. And I strictly followed their instructions. So by doing all this, I became freed from sins. Such a candidate must always seek the association of pure devotees. One should not be misled by a pseudo-devotee. He himself must be plain and gentle to receive the instructions of such a pure devotee. A pure devotee is a completely surrendered soul unto the personality of Godhead. He knows the personality of Godhead as a supreme proprietor and all others as his servitors. And by the association of pure devotees only, one can get rid of all sins accumulated by mundane association. A neophyte devotee must faithfully serve the pure devotee. He should be very much obedient and strictly follow the instructions. These are the signs of a devotee who is determined to achieve success, even in the existing duration of life. Just a minute, bro. Come together. So Narada Muni had firm devotion unto the Supreme Lord, and through his realization, he understood the pure nature of himself. That is not the end of the story. When he was humble, he accepted all of these disciplines. Achyutanam Prabhu.
Just like there is service to pure devotees either by Vapu or Vani, so association also happens Vapu and Vani both with association of pure devotees.
Yeah, but association of Vapu plus Vani is always preferred. No? It's just like when we are sick, we prefer to meet a doctor and directly communicate with him or her real time, so that we can get back and we can report back, and that's what we want. Here's the question: sports and games existed before from Vedic time? Of course, of course, of course. Entertainment, everything was there. These are not invented by mankind recently. How is that? Entertainment was provided by Lord Brahma himself through stage performances, different things. Then, of course, sports, these things were always there. Arts, they all come under arts. 30. Jnanam guhyatamam yattat Sakshat Bhagavatoditam Ango Vochan Gamishyantah Kripaya Dinavatsala. As they were leaving, those Bhaktivedantas who were very kind to poor hearted souls instructed me in that most confidential subject, which is instructed by the personality of Godhead himself. First of all, Guhyatamam, the most confidential instruction, that most confidential subject. So then Sridhar Swami explains what is confidential, what is more confidential, what is most confidential. So confidential knowledge pertains to knowledge of the truth of that practice, which is the means by which we can attain full spiritual realization. More confidential knowledge is knowledge of the spirit soul as being distinct from matter and so on. This is a goal to be attained. Then Guhyatamam Jnanam. Most confidential knowledge is knowledge on knowledge about Ishvara, about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, who is meant to be attained by the one who is self-realized. So the Supreme Lord had previously instructed directly the scripture Srimad Bhagavatam pertaining to this most confidential knowledge. A pure Vedantist or a Bhakti Vedanta instructs followers exactly according to the instructions of the Lord himself. Here. So they instructed me that which was exactly instructed by Bhagavan. A pure Vedantist or a Bhakti Vedanta instructs followers exactly according to the instructions of the Lord himself. The personality of Godhead, both in the Bhagavad Gita and in all other scriptures, has definitely instructed men to follow the Lord only. The Lord is the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of everything. The whole manifested creation is existing by his will. And by his will, when the whole show is finished, he will remain in his eternal abode with all his paraphernalia. Before the creation, he was there in the eternal abode, and after the annihilation, he will continue to remain. He is not therefore one of the created beings. He is transcendental. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that long before the instruction was imparted to Arjuna, the same was instructed to the sun god. And that in course of time, the same instruction being wrongly handled and being broken was again instructed to Arjuna, because he was the Lord's perfect devotee and friend. Therefore, the instruction of the Lord can be understood by the devotees only and no one else. The impersonalist has no idea of the transcendental form of the Lord. Who has no idea of the transcendental form of the Lord cannot understand this most confidential message of the Lord. The expression most confidential is significant here because knowledge of devotion service is far above knowledge of impersonal Brahman. Jnanam means ordinary knowledge or any branch of knowledge. This knowledge develops up to the knowledge of impersonal Brahman. Above this, when it is partially mixed with devotion, such knowledge develops to knowledge of Paramatma or the all-pervading Godhead. This is more confidential. But when such knowledge is turned into pure devotional service and the confidential part of transcendental knowledge is attained, it is called the most confidential knowledge. This most confidential knowledge was imparted by the Lord to Brahma, Arjuna, Uddhava, etc. To Arjuna, he instructed this most confidential knowledge at the end of Bhagavad Gita. Whereas to Lord Brahma, he spoke this most confidential knowledge in the form of Chatushloki in the second canto of Bhagavatam, and to Uddhava through Uddhava Gita in the 11th canto of Bhagavatam. There's a question here. Should we encourage devotees for sports? Also, like students. First of all, sports is a waste of time. It is not going to unless it's going to do good to everyone. In general, Prabhupada has brought in sports under the heading of gambling. One should give up unnecessary sports. One should give up frivolous sports. If you just do a Veda-based search on frivolous sports, you'll find a number of interesting things. That's why Brahmanas were not interested in these things. Those who are interested in see it and chant without any offense. The 10 kinds of offenses are like this: blaspheming the Lord's devotee, considering the Lord and the demigods on the same level, or assuming there are many gods, neglecting the orders of the spiritual master, minimizing the authority of the scriptures, interpreting the holy name of God, and committing sin on the strength of chanting, instructing the glories of the Lord's name to the unfaithful, comparing the holy name with material piety, inattention while chanting the holy name, attachment to material things while engaged in the practice of chanting. So you follow those principles as well as the 4 restrictive rules, namely no addiction to indulgence in any form of intoxication, including coffee, tea, and cigarettes. No illicit sexual relationships, must be strictly vegetarian, no gambling, and other standard practices for initiated devotees. Must attend evening and morning classes, should not extensively mix with non-devotees, should not eat food cooked by non-devotees, should not waste time in idle talks, should not become engaged in frivolous sports, should always chant and sing the Lord's holy names. Chanting as enunciated by Lord Chaitanya is the only means for spiritual realization in this age of dissension. So chant at least 16 rounds daily, and for other help, you can ask assistance from your elderly or brothers. Like this, you'll find many. This was a notice. This notice is still there. If you do an image search, you'll find this. All initiated devotees must attend morning and evening classes, must not be addicted to any kind of intoxication, including coffee, tea, and cigarettes. They are forbidden to have illicit sex connections. Must be strictly vegetarian, should not extensively mix with non-devotees, should not eat foodstuff cooked by non-devotees, should not waste time in idle talks, nor engage himself in frivolous sports, should always chant and sing the Lord's holy names, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And it was signed Acharya A.C. Bhakti-vedanta Swami. See, the first group of devotees, they didn't understand. Okay. Ashuthanam.
Prabhuji, when we deal with students like presently here, so it's some are staying here, some are in hostel. So to what degree can we give this? Like they may say that we need this for entertainment, or we may need this for
Anyway, why you have to bring it up now? That is all. Everything is got a. There are different phases of spiritual life. There are different phases of spiritual life. So you have to bring it up. You ask your superiors engaged in youth preaching, they would have some mechanism. They would have a method at what time you tell what.
But
31.
it is not helpful for physical health. If someone says that,
Maybe.
if a normal person says
He's not
that,
first of
what's
all
wrong with
normal.
him?
None of us are normal, and they are more abnormal than us. We are abnormal, they are more abnormal. The basic idea is that we are not doing good to ourselves through trying to enjoy in this world. But anyway, you pray to Krishna and you take guidance from more experienced preachers on when to say what. But at least at the time of initiation, all these things have to be very clear. Initiation means you are supposed to internally surrender unto Lord Krishna's lotus feet and externally accept the authority of one of his representatives. So these things have to be very clear. Prayasa. Anyway, at some point, you'll have to explain to them Upadeshamrita. So maybe once a month or something. Preface 1 month, preface, and then next month, text 1, next month, text 2. Like that, gradually they get to understand over a period of 1 year what Krishna consciousness is. 12, the preface and 11 verses, that's 12. So if you simply take it through, and gradually I think they will understand, we will also understand. Okay. 31. Yenaivaham Bhagavato Vasudevasya Vedhasaha Mayanubhavam Avidam Yena Gachanti Tatpadam. By that confidential knowledge, I could understand clearly the influence of the energy of Lord Sri Krishna, the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of everything. By knowing that, one can return to him and personally meet him. तदेव ज्ञानं पूर्वोक्तत्वं पदार्थ ज्ञानाद् विवेकेन दर्शयति. And then he realized knowledge about, he realized the nature of the Supreme Lord, which is distinct from self-realization. So he understood that the Supreme Lord is distinct from himself, because the Supreme Lord is the one who gave him that realization. By devotional service or by the most confidential knowledge, one can understand very easily how the different energies of the Lord are working. One part of his energy is manifesting the material world. The other superior part of his energy is manifesting the spiritual world. And his intermediate energy is manifesting the living entities who are serving either of the above mentioned energies. The living entities serving the material energy are struggling hard for existence, and the happiness which is presented to them is illusory. But those in the spiritual energy are placed under the direct service of the Lord in eternal life, complete knowledge, and perpetual bliss. The Lord desires, as he has directly said in the Bhagavad Gita, that all conditioned souls rotting in the kingdom of material energy come back to him by giving up all engagements in the material world. This is the most confidential part of knowledge. So the most confidential part of knowledge is we give up everything else. We give up all pursuits. We give up even ordinary dharma, which is basic infrastructure. We give up that also. We simply engage in devotion service unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. The concrete example is Narada himself, who attained the stage of eternal knowledge and eternal bliss. And the ways and means are open to all, provided one agrees to follow in the footsteps of Sri Narada Muni. According to Shruti, the Supreme Lord has unlimited energies without effort by him. And these are described under 3 principal headings as above mentioned. 2. Etat samsuchitam brahmans tapatre chikitsitam yadishware bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. O Brahmana Vyasadeva, it is decided by the learned that the best remedial measure for removing all troubles and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. tat sadhana dharma rahasyam cha suchitam ityaha etaditi. And the confidential dharma, which constitutes the means to attain that supreme realization regarding the personality of Godhead, that was also indicated to me. Narada Muni conveys this. The medicine for threefold miseries. Threefold miseries are Adhyatmika, Adhidevika, Adhibhautika miseries. Medicine means that which removes the threefold miseries. To be more specific, it means purification of one's existence, purification of one's mind. So when one engages in material activities within Vedic Dharma and offers it unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the controller of all and whose perfection is never ever lost, then one becomes freed from all these troubles and miseries. Narada Muni personally experienced that the most feasible and practical way to open the path of salvation or to get relief from all miseries of life is to hear submissively the transcendental activities of the Lord from the right and bona fide sources. This is the only remedial process. The entire material existence is full of miseries. Foolish people have manufactured out of their tiny brains many remedial measures for removing the threefold miseries pertaining to the body and mind, pertaining to the natural disturbances, and in relation with other living beings. The whole world is struggling very hard to exist out of these miseries, but men do not know that without the sanction of the Lord, no plan or remedial measure can actually bring about the desired peace and tranquility. The remedial measure to cure a patient by medical treatment is useless if it is not sanctioned by the Lord. The attempt to cross a river or the ocean by a suitable boat will fail if it is not sanctioned by the Lord. And the parents' attempt to protect their children cannot succeed if it is not sanctioned by the Lord. This is all paraphrased from Prahlad Maharaj's prayers to Nrsimhadev. We should know for certain that the Lord is the ultimate sanctioning officer, and we must therefore dedicate our attempts to the mercy of the Lord for ultimate success or to get rid of the obstacles on the path of success. The Lord is all-pervading, all-powerful, omniscient, and omnipresent. He is the ultimate sanctioning agent of all good or bad effects. We should therefore learn to dedicate our activities unto the mercy of the Lord and accept Him either as impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It does not matter what one is. One must dedicate everything in the service of the Lord. If one is a learned scholar, scientist, philosopher, poet, etc., then he should employ his learning to establish the supremacy of the Lord. Try to study the energy of the Lord in every sphere of life. Do not decry Him and try to become like Him or take His position simply by fragmental accumulation of knowledge. If one is an administrator, statesman, warrior, politician, etc., then one should try to establish the Lord's supremacy in statesmanship. Fight for the cause of the Lord as Sri Arjuna did. In the beginning, Sri Arjuna, the great fighter, declined to fight, but when he was convinced by the Lord that the fighting was necessary, Sri Arjuna changed his decision and fought for his cause. Similarly, if one is a businessman, an industrialist, an agriculturalist, etc., then one should spend his hard-earned money for the cause of the Lord. Think always that the money which is accumulated is the wealth of the Lord. Wealth is considered to be the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, and the Lord is Narayana, or the husband of Lakshmi. Try to engage Lakshmi in the service of Lord Narayana and be happy. That is the way to realize the Lord in every sphere of life. The best thing is, after all, to get relief from all material activities and engage oneself completely in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. But in case of the absence of such an opportunity, one should try to engage in the service of the Lord, everything for which one has specific attraction. So the best method is to engage in Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. But if one has a taste and if one is capable, without giving up Shravanam Kirtanam, he can also engage in Smaranam Vishnu. And that is enough. But if one has a taste and if one is capable and he wants and is not satisfied just with this, then he can engage also in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam. He can engage in Padasevanam. That means to serve the devotees of the Lord, to serve the holy Dham, which is situated at the lotus feet of the Lord, to serve Ganga Devi, who flows from the lotus feet of the Lord, Yamuna Devi, and so on. And that should be enough. If this is not enough, Shravana, then one can, without giving up Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, and if one has a taste, capable, he can also additionally engage in Archana. If one thinks this is not enough and he needs to do more in order to fix his mind on Krishna, then without giving up Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, if he has a taste and if he is capable, he can additionally engage in Vandanam. If this is also not sufficient to fix the mind on Krishna, then in addition to Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, then one can also execute Dasyam, doing the needful, if one has a taste and if one is capable. The last two items of Navavidha Bhakti are extremely difficult for those who are on the pathway of Vidhi Bhakti. For those who are on the pathway of Raga Bhakti, they are doable. This is Jiva Goswami's own explanation to Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Shloka, Brahmasandharva. So, without giving up Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, one can accept additional services, such as performing activities for which one has specific attraction. That is within the boundaries of not only the dharma, also within the boundary of general spiritual life and devotion service unto the Supreme Lord. That is the way of peace and prosperity. More advanced devotees know how to engage in such activities. That is the way of peace and prosperity, and that is the remedial measure for all the miseries of material existence. Specifically in recent times, Prabhupada has exhibited extreme expertise in engaging devotees on almost any type of sinless activity. Whether you are a Shudra, you are a Vaishya, you are a Kshatriya, you are a Brahmana, or you are a Varna Sankara, whatever you may be, Prabhupada has worked out something by which we can be busy in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. The word samsuchitam in this stanza is also significant. One should not think for a moment that the realization of Narada was childish imagination only. It is not like that. It is so realized by the expert and erudite scholars, and that is the real import of the word samsuchitam. Samsuchitam, decided by the learned, indicated. 33. Amayo yascha bhutanam jayate yena subrata taddeva hyamayam dravyam na punati chikitsitam. O good soul, does not a thing applied therapeutically cure a disease which was caused by that very same thing? Anu samsara hetu karmanaha katham tapatre nivartakatvam samagri bhedena ghatate iti sadrishtantamaha dvabhyam. Question. Activities of sense enjoyment, karma, they are the cause for one to continue the cycle of birth and rebirth. Then how can they be the cause of freedom from the threefold miseries? As an answer to this question, Narada Muni speaks two verses, text 33 and 34, with an example. He says that when you change certain ingredients, then they become the causes of deliverance. So, just as one might get a disease because of ghee and so on. So, if you simply take that item which caused that disease without adding anything, just isolate it, and you give it, it will not free you from that disease. But when one is treated, that means if one is administered that same substance with certain special additional ingredients, then it purifies. An expert physician treats his patient with a therapeutic diet. For example, milk preparation sometimes causes disorder of the bowels, but the very same milk converted into yogurt and mixed with other remedial ingredients cures such disorders. Similarly, the threefold miseries of material existence cannot be mitigated simply by material activities. Here, material activities refer to sinless material activities, karma. They do not refer to anyavilashita or adharmic pursuits. Such activities have to be spiritualized. Just as by fire, iron is made red hot, and thereby the action of fire begins. So, only engaging in sinless material activity will not purify one from material existence. But if one mixes sinless material activities with sattvic activities, jnana, and then mixes it further with transcendental activities, Navavida Bhakti, then it is possible. Similarly, the material conception of a thing is at once changed as soon as it is put into the service of the Lord. That is the secret of spiritual success. We should not try to lord it over the material nature, nor should we reject material things. The best way is to make the best use of a bad bargain, to use everything in relation with the Supreme Spiritual Being. Everything is an emanation from the Supreme Spirit, and by his inconceivable power, he can convert spirit into matter and matter into spirit. That means he can convert the effect of what is ordinarily spiritual into something material, and he can convert the effect of what is ordinarily material into a spiritual effect. Therefore, a material thing, so called, is at once turned into a spiritual force by the great will of the Lord. The necessary condition for such a change is to employ so-called matter in the service of the spirit. That is the way to treat our material disease and elevate ourselves to the spiritual plane where there is no misery, no lamentation, and no fear. When everything is thus employed in the service of the Lord, we can experience that there is nothing except the Supreme Brahman. The Vedic mantra that everything is Brahman is thus realized by us. Before, evam nranam kriya yoga sarve samsruti hetavaha ta evatma vinashaya kalpante kalpitah pare. Thus, when all a man's activities are dedicated to the service of the Lord, those very activities which cause this perpetual bondage, become the destroyer of the tree of work.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, I would like to understand this little more, that threefold miseries cannot be mitigated by material. Why and how? Because I was remembering this, that when Thorn is in Bhagavatam only, when the Yadu dynasty is wiped out, and this analogy that one thorn is needed to remove the other thorn from the field. So if someone can apply that explanation here, threefold miseries, one thorn, So it will be removed by another thorn in form of material activity.
Yes, but that other thorn also has to be given up, no? And there's a process for it. There's a process for it. One night, say it's like this. How do everything take so much time? Say, so let's say a person is engaged only in adharma. Okay. So then, this is the 0th step. Or let's say you might be engaged in adharma and materialistic dharma. This is dharma which is aimed at material enjoyment in the next life. This is aimed at liberation in the next life. I mean, we die in this life and then we are liberated. And prema bhakti also will attain in the full-fledged manner the next life. Adharma alone is referring to enjoyment in this life. Aihika bhakti. Okay. So let's say a person is engaged only in adharma or is interested in adharma and materialistic dharma. Rare, but let's assume it is there. Now, how will this person become fully spiritual? One way is he's trained in the activities of Krishna consciousness. And then this should go away. So this is how you make progress. So there's a process for it. There's a process for it. Is that clear? So it may take decades to come to this point. It may take, for some, it may take lifetimes also. But this is the way one wants to progress.
Prabhu,
If this is not clear, let me explain in another way.
in this only just one side question that we consider only next life material enjoyment or next life liberation. What about this life material enjoyment? Instant.
This life is dharma. Why people want to engage in adharma? Because they want everything now. Next life enjoyment will include a preview in this life. Next liberation will include a preview in this life. Jivan Mukti, it's called. And final liberation, when you are freed from gross body, that is Videha Mukti. Similarly, this life we can experience in this life also we can experience the bliss of pure sadhana bhakti, pure bhava bhakti. But there are stages beyond that also, which can only be experienced after we give up this body. So everywhere understanding is there. But when you say ahika bhakti, it means this is that's all. Anything else. Okay, let me explain it another way. This time I'll put 5 parameters. So, in terms of so let's say I start off like this. I'm only interested in material happiness. Kama refers to being happy in terms of acquiring a favorable combination of material sound, touch, form, taste, smell. But then the vast majority are interested in Kama and Artha. Artha refers to anything which is of value. Money, reputation, many things come under Artha category. And then Dharma, in this case, would refer to pious credits.
तो वो चले गए क्या?
ऐसे ही लग रहा. हरे कृष्ण.
Material prosperity also. Then he will lose.
Oh, sorry, your network was not good. We could not understand.
So, gradually, as one progresses, one loses the desire for Kama, then he loses desire for Artha, then he loses desire for pious credits, then he loses desire for liberation. Step by step, we progress. So let us progress without regress. Let us progress without regret. That's all.
True, but we started with that how miseries cannot be eliminated by material activities.
Yes, that is why that's a process. That's a process by which you use something, you use fruitive activities. It is not rejected in the process, overall process. It is there, but at some point you give it up also. So the problem is when you consider karma itself to be the sadhya, it becomes a problem. When it is accepted as an avantara sadhana, intermediate sadhana, that you accept and then you reject it, then it is okay. It has its own duty to fulfill, that's all. Same way jnana. That is why the Vedic scriptures present karma and jnana and bhakti. They don't present only bhakti. Present karma and jnana and bhakti, because you need a ladder to climb. Strictly speaking, everything starts from here only. Your spiritual life, the beginning of your spiritual life will be from the addition of bhakti from here. There are authorities who will not accept that this is the beginning of Krishna consciousness. They say the beginning of Krishna consciousness is here. Because Anyabhilashita Shunyam. One has to come to the point where he does not engage in adharma at all. That is the starting point. So if you say this is 1, 2, 3, then you will have to say this is 0, and this is -1, this is -2, this is -3. Which is okay. From -2, people can progress, but otherwise you just, anyway, you number it the way the audience feels comfortable. Instead of smoking 10 cigarettes per day, let them start smoking 9 cigarettes, and then 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And then you tell them, okay, good, now you are normal, which they would have thought is some great achievement, which is okay, which is all right. From Radharani's perspective, attaining full-fledged love of Krishna is normal. Anything lower than that is abnormal. So at some point, we will have to also become normal by her standard. Fruity work, which has perpetually engaged the living being, is compared. Okay, wait, did I read the song? No, I didn't. So then these fruitive activities, when they're mixed with devotional service unto the Supreme Lord in such a manner that devotional service unto the Supreme Lord predominate and then finally become exclusive, such fruitive activities are now capable of making you free from those very same activities. In other words, they give us detachment, a feeling of detachment from those very same activities. They create an alam buddhi. Okay, this is enough. But this is enough not in the regular material sense. Like for instance, we eat. And then at one point we say, okay, this is enough. But the desire for eating remains. So the next time we become hungry, then again we eat. But this is not like that. The desire to engage in sinful material life or sinless material life will go away. So when does that happen? When these activities are dedicated to the Supreme Lord. And as Prabhupada often explains, dedicated to the Supreme Lord means to mix them with Krishna consciousness. To mix them with Krishna consciousness. It's called Sangasiddha Bhakti. So if Prabhupada's typical explanation is this. If you make money, then you make money for Krishna. And make money for Krishna means you donate that money for Krishna's mission. That is what is referred to as for Krishna. Atracha prasamam mahat seva. First step is to serve the great source. Tatascha tat kripa. And then the next step is one attains the mercy of those great souls. Tatas tad dharma shraddha. Then the next point is to develop faith in the dharma of those great souls. Tato bhagavad katha shravanam. And then one hears the message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tato bhagavati ratihi. And then one attains attraction to Bhagavan. Tayacha dehadvaya viveka atmagyanam. And then one develops realized knowledge about himself being distinct from the gross body and subtle body. Tato drida bhakti. Then bhakti becomes firm. Tato bhagavad tattva jnanam. Then one realizes the nature of Bhagavan. Tatas tat kripaya. His mercy. Sarvagyatvari bhagavad gunavirbhavaha. And then there is a revelation of the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such as his omniscience. iti kramodashitaha. In this way, the sequence has been shown in Srimad Bhagavatam. Fruitive work, which has perpetually engaged the living being, is compared to the banyan tree in the Bhagavad Gita, for it is certainly very deeply rooted. As long as the propensity for enjoying the fruit of work is there, one has to continue the transmigration of the soul from one body or place to another according to one's nature of work. This is a paraphrase of something stated by Rishabhadev in the 5th canto. Emphasis: the propensity for enjoyment may be turned into the desire for serving the mission of the Lord. End of emphasis. In this way, one's activity is changed into karma yoga, or the way by which one can attain spiritual perfection while engaging in the work for which he has a natural tendency. In other words, without touching adharma, one can start off with Bhakti Mishra karma, and under the guidance of the expert, perfect, pure devotee of the Lord, upgrade his devotion service to Karma Mishra Bhakti, and then upgrade further to the point of pure Bhakti, pure Sadhana Bhakti, pure Bhava Bhakti, pure Prema Bhakti. Here the word Atma indicates the categories of all fruitive work. The conclusion is that when the result of all fruitive and other work is dovetailed with the service of the Lord, it will cease to generate further karma and will gradually develop into transcendental devotional service, which will not only cut off completely the root of the banyan tree of work, but will also carry the performer to the lotus feet of the Lord. The summary is that one has to first of all seek the association of pure devotees who are not only learned in the Vedanta, but who are also self-realized souls and unalloyed devotees of Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. In that association, the neophyte devotees must render loving service physically and mentally without reservation. This service attitude will induce the great souls to be more favorable in bestowing their mercy, which infuses the neophyte with all the transcendental qualities of the pure devotees. Gradually, one develops a strong attachment to hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, which makes him able to catch up the constitutional position of the gross and subtle bodies, and beyond them, the knowledge of the pure soul and his eternal relation with the Supreme Soul, the personality of Godhead. After the relation is ascertained by establishment of the eternal relation, pure devotional service to the Lord begins gradually developing into perfect knowledge of the personality of Godhead, beyond the purview of impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma. By such Purushottama Yoga, by such communion with the Supreme Lord. Purushottama Yoga is the name of chapter 16 of Bhagavad Gita. As it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, one is made perfect even during the present corporeal existence, physical existence. And one exhibits all the good qualities of the Lord to the highest percentage. This is basically a paraphrase of one exhibits all the good qualities of the Lord to the highest percentage. Not that he becomes Sarvagya literally like the Supreme Lord, but he becomes Sarvagya in terms of the first 50 qualities noted in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which we will develop to a limited extent. But in comparison to the material world, one has to admit that he is Sarvagya. Again, even if he becomes Sarvagya, he is dependent Sarvagya. He is not the independent Sarvagya. The independent Sarvagya is only the Supreme Personality of God. Such is the gradual development by association of pure devotees. 35. Yadatra kriyate karma bhagavad paritoshanam yanam yattad dathinam hi bhakti yoga samanvitam. Whatever work is done here in this life for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord is called Bhakti Yoga, or transcendental loving service to the Lord, and what is called knowledge becomes a concomitant factor. Question. Through spiritual realization, jnana, there is a destruction of the karmic reactions which have come about due to ajnana, lack of such realization. And it can be admitted that such realization comes because of Bhakti Yoga. But how is it that you say that karma itself brings about destruction of karma? That fruitive activity itself brings about a destruction of karmic reactions. So Prabhupada points out that karma, which is executed for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord, is called Bhakti Yoga because it is now a part of Bhakti Yoga. It is spiritualized material work. And therefore, knowledge becomes a concomitant factor. Knowledge comes out automatically. The general and popular notion is that by discharging fruity work in terms of the direction of the scriptures, one becomes perfectly able to acquire transcendental knowledge for spiritual realization. Bhakti Yoga is considered by some to be another form of karma. But factually, Bhakti Yoga is above both karma and jnana. Bhakti Yoga is independent of jnana or karma. On the other hand, jnana and karma are dependent on Bhakti Yoga. This Kriya Yoga or Karma Yoga, as recommended by Sri Narada to Vyasa, is specifically recommended because the principle is to satisfy the Lord. The Lord does not want his sons, the living beings, to suffer the threefold miseries of life. He desires that all of them come to him and live with him. But going back to God means, what is this? Where did I stop? Means one must purify himself from material infections. When work is performed, therefore, to satisfy the Lord, the performer becomes gradually purified from material affection. This purification means attainment of spiritual knowledge. Therefore, knowledge is dependent on karma or work done on behalf of the Lord. Other knowledge, being devoid of Bhakti Yoga or satisfaction of the Lord, cannot lead one back to the kingdom of God, which means it cannot even offer salvation, as already explained in connection with the stanza beginning. Naishkarmyam apyachyuta bhava varjitam. The conclusion is that a devotee engaged in unalloyed service of the Lord, specifically in hearing and chanting of his transcendental glories, becomes simultaneously spiritually enlightened by the divine grace as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Now, this can be very favorably compared with the Narada Muni's own description of karma. When we come to 7th canto and we look at these, this portion is called Dharma Nirnaya, a settlement of the nature of dharma or karma. Chapters 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So here we notice that first of all, Narada Muni is speaking to Yudhishthira Maharaj. So he talks about certain common duties. He talks about certain common duties. 21 plus 9. 21 items of jnana. You'll find these 21 items reproduced in a different format in Bhagavad Gita, last 6 chapters. If you examine the activities of goodness, anything pertaining to Sattva Guna, chapter 14, chapter 17, chapter 18. If you look at the features of jnana, chapter 13, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or chapter 16, text 1, 2, 3, you will find these 21 to be put out in a different manner there. All of that, the same only. Then you have 9 types of devotion service. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna just gives an indication of this. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskar. That's an indication. So the idea is that here also, everybody is supposed to engage in jnana, bhakti and jnana. Then in addition to this, there are additional duties. Varna dharma and ashrama dharma for men, Stri dharma for women. And there are considerations of apatsthiti and nirapatsthiti, crisis situations and non-crisis situations. What do you do when there's a drought? You cannot carry out your varna dharma. What do you do when the husband is not worthy of being served? So there are duties. What needs to be done? So here also the idea is that in this presentation also, one executes karma and jnana and bhakti. And later he should come to the point where he executes only jnana and bhakti. Later he comes to the point where he executes only bhakti. So here also we see, if you examine these 5 chapters, you will understand that. So everybody has to come to this point of finally executing the different forms of devotional service to Lord Vishnu alone. And of course, you cannot touch adharma. Adharma is enemy number one. It's just forbidden activity. 56. Kurvana yatra karmani bhagavad chichaya sakrit grinanti gunanamani krishnasya smaranti cha. While performing duties according to the order of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one constantly remembers him by repeatedly remembering his names and his qualities. Bhagavad arpanena kriyamanam karma bhakti yogam janayati iti sad acharena darshayati. So when one executes sinless material activity, karma, by offering it unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then that brings about Bhakti Yoga. So this he shows by referring to the conduct of the saintly persons. That means saintly authorities have actually demonstrated this. That from Bhakti Mishra Karma, you can come to Karma Mishra Bhakti and then Kevala Bhakti. Kevala Sadhana Bhakti, Kevala Bhava Bhakti, Kevala Prema Bhakti. Yatra yada bhagavata shikshaya karmani kurvana bhavanti tada Shri Krishnasya gunanamani grinanti anusmaranti cha Krishnam ityarthaha. So when one carries out these material duties as per the teachings of Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one chants and remembers the holy names and transcendental qualities of Lord Sri Krishna. Yamcha Bhagavad Shiksha. And this very teaching of Bhagavan is found in Bhagavad Gita. Yat karoshi, yadashnashi, yajjuhosi, tadasiyat, yat tapasyasi kaunte, yat tatkurushvam madarpanam. An expert devotee of the Lord can mold his life in such a way that while performing all kinds of duties, either for this or the next life, he can constantly remember the Lord's name, fame, qualities, etc. The order of the Lord is distinctly there in the Bhagavad Gita. One should work only for the Lord in all spheres of life. In every sphere of life, the Lord should be situated as a proprietor. According to the Vedic rites, even the worship of some demigods like Indra, Brahma, Saraswati, and Ganesha, the system is that in all circumstances, the representation of Vishnu must be there as Yageshwara, or the controlling power of such sacrifices. It is recommended that a particular demigod be worshipped for a particular purpose, but still the presence of Vishnu is compulsory in order to make the function proper. Apart from such Vedic duties, even in our ordinary dealings, for example, in our household affairs, or in our business or profession, we must consider that the result of all activities must be given over to the Supreme Enjoyer, Lord Krishna. And Prabhupada explained the meaning of giving the result. Giving the result means giving money, because the result of working is money. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has declared himself to be the supreme enjoyer of everything, the supreme proprietor of every planet, and the supreme friend of all beings. No one else but Lord Sri Krishna can claim to be the proprietor of everything within his creation. A pure devotee remembers this constantly. And in doing so, he repeats the transcendental name, fame, and qualities of the Lord, which means he is constantly in touch with the Lord. The Lord is identical with his name, fame, etc. Therefore, to be constantly associating with his name, fame, etc. means actually to associate with the Lord. The major portion of our monetary income, not less than 50%, must be spent to carry out the order of Lord Krishna. Not only should we give the profit of our earning to this cause, but we must also arrange to preach this cult of devotion to others, because that is also one of the orders of the Lord. The Lord definitely says that no one is more dear to him than one who is always engaged in the preaching work of the Lord's name and fame all over the world. The scientific discoveries of the material world can also be equally engaged in carrying out his order. He wants the message of the Bhagavad Gita to be preached amongst his devotees. It may not be so done amongst those who have no credit of austerities, charity, education, etc. Therefore, the attempt must go on to convert unwilling men to become his devotees and then preach the Bhagavad Gita to them. Lord Chaitanya has taught a very simple method in this connection. He has taught the lesson for preaching the transcendental message through singing, dancing, and refreshment. As such, 50% of our income may be spent for this purpose. In this fallen age of quarrel and dissension, if only the leading and wealthy persons of society agree to spend 50% of their income in the service of the Lord, as it is taught by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there is absolute certainty of converting this hell of pandemonium to the transcendental abode of the Lord. In other words, if people are interested in earning money and they also want to make rapid progress in Krishna consciousness, in addition to engaging in Shravanam, Kirtanam, and so on, they should also become financial partners in Lord Chaitanya's preaching mission. They should contribute money. Even in businesses, there are different types of business partners, and there are some business partners who give consultation, some who give guidance, and then there are others who actually contribute money, but they decide things together. So like that, to execute Krishna consciousness preaching, we also require money. Pranay Arthe Diya Vacha. So these people can, those who are obsessed with earning money, they should donate. They should spend 50% of their income. Everyone, okay. No one will disagree to partake in a function where good singing, dancing, and refreshment are administered. Everyone will attend such a function, and everyone is sure to feel individually the transcendental presence of the Lord. This alone will help the attendants associate with the Lord and thereby purify themselves in spiritual realization. The only condition for successfully executing such spiritual activities is that they must be conducted under the guidance of a pure devotee who is completely free from all mundane desires, fruitive activities, and dry speculations about the nature of the Lord. No one has to discover the nature of the Lord. It is already spoken by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita especially, and in all other Vedic literatures generally. We have simply to accept them in toto. That means without addition or subtraction. Abide by the orders of the Lord. That will guide us to the path of perfection. No one can remain in his own position. No one has to change his position, especially in this age of variegated difficulty. The only condition is that one must give up the habit of dry speculation aimed at becoming one with the Lord. And after giving up such lofty, puffed up vanities, symptoms of pride, one may very submissively receive the orders of the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam from the lips of a bona fide devotee whose qualification is mentioned above. That will make everything successful without a doubt. 57. Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam Vasudevaya Dhimahi Pradyumnaya Niruddhaya Namasankarshanaya Cha. Let us chant the glories of Vasudeva along with his plenary expansions, Pradyumna, Niruddha, and Sankarshana. Kirtana Smarana Rupa Bhakti Hetutvam Muktam Jnana Hetutvam Ahadvabhyam. So these activities, they bring about bhakti in the form of kirtana and smarana. That was noted in the previous verse. Now it is pointed out that these activities also bring about realization. In two verses, this is stated, text 37 and 38. Namaha Dhimahi means we offer our obeisances in our minds. Dhimahi, Namaha, offering obeisance to the Lord. Dhimahi. We meditate on the Lord in the mind, we also glorify him. According to the Pancharatra, Narayana is the primeval cause of all expansions of Godhead. These are Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Vasudeva and Sankarshana are on the middle, left, and right. Pradyumna is on the right of Sankarshana, and Aniruddha is on the left of Vasudeva. And thus the four deities are situated. They are known as the four aides de camp of Lord Shri Krishna. They are known as the four attendants of Lord Shri Krishna. This is a Vedic hymn or mantra beginning with Omkar Pranava. And thus the mantra is established by the transcendental chanting process, namely Om. Om, it should be Om Kama. Namaha Kama Dhimahi. etc. The purport is that any transaction, either in the field of fruitive work or in empiric philosophy, karma or jnana, which is not ultimately aimed at transcendental realization of the Supreme Lord, is considered to be useless. Naradaji has therefore explained the nature of unalloyed devotional service by his personal experience in the development of intimacy between the Lord and the living entity by a gradual process of progressive devotional activities. Such a progressive march of transcendental devotion for the Lord culminates in the attainment of loving service of the Lord, which is called prema, in different transcendental varieties of rasas or tastes. Such devotion service is also executed in mixed forms, namely mixed with fruitive work or empiric philosophical speculation. Now the question which was raised by the great rishis headed by Shaunaka regarding the confidential part of Suta's achievement through the spiritual masters is explained herein by the chanting of this hymn consisting of 33 letters. And this mantra is addressed to the four deities or the Lord with his plenary expansions. The central figure is Lord Shri Krishna, because the plenary portions are his aide de camp. The most confidential part of the instruction is that one should always chant and remember the glories of the Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with his different plenary portions, expanded as Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Those expansions are the original deities for all of the truths, namely either Vishnu Tattva or Shakti Tattvas. Okay, let me see if there's any time to quickly go through some of the points from the predecessor acharyas from 28 to 37. Faster. What is 27? Oh, not 27, from 28. Put in this table with the people. Text 28 is about Prema Bhakti. The next two stages, Darshanam and Saksha Madhurya Anubhava or Harer Madhurya Anubhava. These two will be mentioned in the next chapter. Bhuhyatama, most confidential knowledge is knowledge of Bhagavan, which is superior to knowledge of Brahman or Paramatma. Krishna Chakravarti Thakur explains Jnana Shastra, the scriptural injunctions on knowledge as means to attain liberation. Superior to that is Bhakti Mishra Jnana. Superior to that is Jnana Mishra Bhakti. Superior to that is Kevala Bhakti. Bhakti-Vidya Bhushan explains it in another manner. He says, knowledge of oneself as being distinct from the body and so on is confidential knowledge. More confidential knowledge is knowledge that the Supreme Lord is distinct from his entire world consisting of the living entities and matter. And most confidential knowledge is realizing that he is completely under the control of his perfect pure devotees. Something interesting. There's the word samsuchitam, which means learned and indicated by, decided and indicated by learned souls. This appears in text 32. And Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, this was not directly told to me because it has no relevance for me. It is not needed for me because Narada Muni was engaging in Kevala Bhakti. So he does not need to know, he does not need to be told or instructed that he has to engage in Bhakti Mishra Karma, sinless Bhakti Mishra Karma, then sinless Karma Mishra Bhakti, and then come to Kevala Bhakti. He is directly trained in Kevala Bhakti. Yeah. Jiva Goswami has pointed out in his commentary to what is this text? 34. That when we talk about offering the activities to the Lord, it is also implied that one should offer one's material desires to the Lord. Krishna Chakravarti Thakur points out that all kinds of activities can be offered to the Supreme Lord. Nitya, Kamya, Naimittika, and Nishkama activities. Then they become capable of freeing oneself from karmic reactions. Nitya refers to daily activities. Naimittika refers to occasional activities. Also, non-daily periodical activities come under Naimittika. Sometimes Nitya itself is referred to as having periodical activities, daily and non-daily types, in which case Naimittika refers to occasional activities, activities which are demanded by circumstances. Kamya refers to activities that one himself wants to do to attain certain material results. When it says that knowledge becomes a concomitant factor of Bhakti Yoga, it means that knowledge inevitably comes out of devotional service. Vishnu Chakravarti also notes that, but when one engages in cultivating knowledge that is devoid of bhakti, then there is no capacity in that process to lead one towards liberation. The evidence is Bhagavatam 1.5.12, where such a process is criticized. So from Bhakti-mishra karma, one comes to Bhakti-mishra jnana, which is the means for liberation. But when one engages in Bhakti-mishra nishkama karma, then by the good fortune of associating with devotees of that type, some of them, sometimes, for some of them, at some times, there is a possibility that karma mishra bhakti might come to that person. So when one is situated in Bhakti Mishra karma and unexpectedly, by the good fortune of the association of advanced devotees, on the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one executes karma, then some of them, they chant Krishna's holy names and remember his transcendental qualities. In other words, they engage in bhakti consisting of kirtanam, smaranam, and so on. And the order of the Lord is Bhagavad Gita 9.27. And his teaching, we understand to be found within the section on bhakti. It is not appropriate to interpret this the way karmi is interpreted. Because the karmis, in order to ensure that they attain material results, they can only engage in Vedic activities. But the bhaktas who accept that Bhagavan is their master and they consider themselves to be belonging to him, they engage in all activities, Vedic activities and even ordinary worldly bodily activities, everything as activities carried out on the order of their respective master. Their master is Krishna. So they come under the Supreme Lord's control under all circumstances. This is also the explanation of Sri Ramanujacharya. Okay, then he is saying something which was explained by Vishnu Chakravarti in his commentary to Bhagavad Gita also. Swanishtha, Vaidikameva karma arpayanti. Tat prasangat parinishthita santaha laukikam daihikam cha tat arpayanti iti bhavaha. But by the submissive association of parinishtitas, then they offer ordinary worldly activities also. Prabhupada's purport is derived from Jiva Goswami. He specifically notes that Krishna's son, Krishna's grandson, are said to be Pradyumna and Aniruddha. Sankarsana is his younger brother. So after they taught all of these methods by which one attains spiritual progress, they also gave him their mantra while generating faith. This is a mantra on the Chaturvyuha. Contains 33 aksharas. The presiding deity of this mantra are Sankarshana and so on. Okay. Oh, that. Stop with that. Anchakal passenger Vaishnava, already 5 minutes late. Okay.